Hello, everyone. This is Upfront, where we have quick conversations about how to build a stronger organization by connecting with your frontline team who are critical to your success, but are often hard to reach and engage. Our guests are thought leaders who share real-life experiences and insights that you can actually put to work. No fluff, just real stuff at Upfront. I'm your host, Sonia Sepaban at Trivi, an easy AI-driven messaging and feedback tool with no apps or logins required. Your frontline will love Trivi, and your leaders will thrive with real-time insights and next steps. You can find information on how to connect with us in the show notes. Now, let's get on with our show. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Devesh Sinha, who is our guest and Chief People Officer at Dave & Buster's. He's joining us from Texas, I believe, right, Devesh?
That's right, Sonia. And good day to you. And thank you for having me here. Looking forward to the conversation.
Same here, same here. It's so great to have you here. Let's start by just telling us a little bit about yourself, if you would, and also Dave & Buster's and what you all do there.
Yeah, sure. As you said, my name is Devesh Sinha. I have spent most of my working life in the QSR restaurant space with Yum Brands. And more recently, I've moved over to Dave & Buster's as their Chief People Officer. And really enjoying the time that I'm having here, working with people, thought leaders, thought partners, and trying to turn around this business, which is a very well-loved, revered business across the United States.
Yes, I have memories of going to Dave & Buster's myself, but you have a couple hundred locations or like a large number, right? It surprised me when you shared in our earlier conversation how many locations you have.
Yes, that's true. If you think about the Dave & Buster's organization, we call ourselves Dave & Buster, but we also have Main Event as our second brand, which was acquired a few years ago by Dave & Buster's. So under the Dave & Buster's umbrella, we have two brands. Dave & Buster's has about 175 odd stores, and then Main Event has around 65 stores. And we are spread across all of United States. But more recently, we've opened stores in Philippines, India, Mexico, Dominican Republic, and we are soon to open in Australia as well.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that. How are those doing? Are they open and running now? And how is the reception?
Yeah, Australia is, we are opening in Perth, which is going to be operational in the next few weeks. But all our other locations are open, and they're doing reasonably well. It's a new concept. There are one or two stores in each country, and they've had a strong reception. Early days, but we are very, very confident that we will continue to grow internationally as well. However, our core business still remains in US.
Yes, absolutely. I know wherever you go in the world, you see all of these American brands, right? You see the McDonald's and the Pizza Huts and, and everything, KFCs. And I never forget my experience at a McDonald's in Russia. I actually thought that it tasted better.
Right.
I asked them actually about this because, I make it my business to get into everybody else's business. And I was like, I'm American and this tastes so good. And they said, well, it's because all of the produce comes from local markets. And
that is correct. Mm-hmm.
I guess that was why. So I don't know if you see a big variation because I know you have, of course, the restaurant aspect and the and even the bars and so on.
Yeah, it's similar for us as well. We don't move food across national boundaries and on shipping containers. We have a core set of menu. We have certain menu principles. We apply those, and then we look at the consumer or the customer that we are serving and tailor the menu according to their taste, palettes, and our menu structure. So we generally procure food locally.
Yeah, that's fascinating. It's a complex business. And I know you have, of course, a very large team, but workforce of about, if I recall, maybe you said about 25,000 or so.
Yeah, if we include all our frontline team members, we're around 25,000. The international stores are all franchise stores, so
Mhm.
they are separate, and the franchisees in our individual stores, individual countries, they employ those team members there. But when you speak to the business which we have here in US, they are our employees employed by Dave and Buster and Main Event.
Yeah, what really struck me when we talked and really impressed me was you've created a culture where frontline employees can grow from, basically a frontline worker into senior leadership roles over time. What do you think has been the most critical success factor, in building that kind of environment at the scale of Dave and Buster's?
Yeah, I guess it's important to call out the culture Dave and Buster they themselves set when they founded the organization. It's a founder-led company, and while they're not here with us anymore, they have done an incredible job. They started off by a principle called ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen, and
Oh.
that foundational principle was based uh, on respect, uh, respect that we have for each other as team members, as employees, and guest versus employees. So we've always kind of driven by that fundamental truth within the Dave and Buster team. And there are several people in our organization right now who actually met Dave and Buster's, and they worked with them, and they are the reason why we are such a big organization right now. We were recently in Nashville, Tennessee, where we had a GM conference, and we had GMs from all our locations come in, and it was absolutely impressive to see the love that people who work for Dave and Buster's had for the brand. And it kind of filtered over to the supplier side as well. I met several suppliers who've been suppliers for Dave and Buster's for decades, and they had the same brand love.
Mm.
Now, when you think of this, why does this brand love exist, and how have we able to cultivate it and keep it going over the years? Is essentially by taking care of people, and there are some basic things like we have to pay them right, we have to do all of those things, but essentially we have been able to uh, expose them to newer challenges where they can learn from it, continue to apply their skill set, and then take on the challenges that are thrown at them. So we really have some people who started off as team members and now are in senior leadership positions in operations, in other functions, in development, in entertainment. We have people who have tenure like 35 years, 37 years, 38 years in our organization. So I think fundamentally, if you give people a challenge, respect them, create an environment, it all comes together.
Yeah, that's fascinating that that founder influence is still there. I really relate to that because I worked at TRW at one time, and one of the founders, Simon Ramo, was still around when I was at the company, and
Hmm.
he wasn't active, but he was still living. He passed away, I think, in about 10 years ago. But while I was there, he would once in a while he would visit, and we would have some conversations with him. And so that influence of how he and his co-founders started the company, that history, that storytelling was so important to all employees, and certainly at all levels of the company. So I really relate to
Yes.
that.
Hmm.
Appreciate you sharing that about the founders at Dave and Buster's. When you talk about basically listening to the employees and giving them what they need. It reminds me of what you referred to as the employee value proposition, right? Or the
Mhm.
EVP, and the importance of that to you as the top, chief people officer there. What do you think are the key ingredients of a strong EVP that are most effective in
Yeah.
both attracting and retaining your talent, while also, of course, driving business outcomes
hmm
for the company?
hmm Sure. You know, it's actually the formula is same for every organization in a way, and different people kind of um, package it differently based on the industry they are in or based on the type of employee they are working with. But if you, as you listen to me, maybe you should think about it and apply to yourself and say, if you were employed somewhere and you were to get these key ingredients delivered to you in a way that a organization can, will it be good? So that's a question that I'll have for you at the end of this. But essentially, in my mind, there are there are a few things. Firstly, what we call it as uh, competence, in a way where there is somebody who works at an organization is able to grow their skill set
Mhm.
and use that to enhance or add value to their own skill set, plus deliver a great experience for whoever their stakeholder is, right? So something that challenges them. If you give people a task, it should really challenge them. Now that's counterintuitive, where a normal person would say that no, if the job is easy, you can normally hold on to people and you are more likely to attract them. It's not true. People generally in their mannerism, in their behavior, do not behave like that. If you give somebody an easy task, they'll do it for a while. They'll be excited by the money and whatnot, but they'll get bored soon. So there is something that we have to continuously find to challenge them. That's one thing that allows them to grow and progress and become better human beings. The other one is control. There is and it's that specially applies to us in hospitality industry. I give this example a lot, that there is a customer who is unhappy with, let's say, a service or a product, and they go walk up to a team member, and the team member listens to the problem, but they are not empowered to solve for that. And so what's the next step? They'll say, okay, I'll get my manager. The manager comes in and does the exact same thing that the team member could have easily done. So essentially, they have no empowerment, they have no control on a situation, and that kind of is um makes them feel devalued or just a number or somebody who's a spoke in the wheel, or a brick in the wall. So the more you can empower your front line in ways where they can get the business outcome you want, which is most likely delighting your customer. So if they are able to do that themselves with as little friction and resistance, that's going to be helpful. And then the last thing is community, feeling like they're part of a community, they're part of a tribe. So you've often heard various organizations which are extremely proud of their culture, and you build together a culture where people are essentially able to be themselves. So, Sonia, you can be yourself, I can be myself, and everybody else, whether they're male, female, irrespective of their race, color, sexual orientation, if they can be themselves without feeling out, kind of being an exception, um, that's the feeling of community that we try and build. So essentially, if you kind of apply this, that's the key ingredient. Um, in addition to that, these things need to be constantly massaged, expressed, and worked on. Um, So we also have a very critical role in our organization, who we call the GMs of each of these centers. So GMs to a team member in proxy essentially become a mother or a fatherly figure, right? And if they are able to, you know, continue to challenge the people to grow, they're continuously training and coaching and empowering them, and then creating a culture where everybody can be themselves. That is the perfect scenario for an authentic, great culture to build.
Absolutely. As you were talking about empowering employees, it made me think of an episode where we talked with Christine Wilczek from a high-end hospitality group. Actually, it's a hotel brand and lodging, and she talked about five-star teams will deliver five-star service.
Mhm.
That's the title of our episode there.
Yes.
Talking exactly about what you said, that when somebody walks to the front desk, at a hotel, uh, whoever is there in front of them ought to be able to take care of most of their needs, whatever the issue
Yeah.
might be, instead of having to continuously, go
Yeah.
escalate and get somebody
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. You're 100% right. And did you say Christine was your earlier guest?
Yes.
And this is the same point that I was making earlier, that these are the essential ingredients. Even now, when I am not a frontline team member, I started there. I'm not a frontline team member. In my current role, also, I'm looking for jobs or tasks that actually challenge and grow me, and I'm
Mhm.
looking for empowerment, that I can take my decisions and I don't have to find myself constantly seeking approval. And the last thing which we spoke about, just being myself and not having to worry about to being someone else that I'm not. So uh, Christine said the same thing, and it is true for a lot many organizations.
Yes, we all want to keep being challenged and to have this sense that we're growing, right? I mean, people have
Correct.
pace. I think it's just a matter of pace, how fast they
Yeah.
want to grow versus whether they want to grow. Everybody wants to grow. And actually, I always often say that you get to the point where, I sit on some boards, public company and other companies, and it's like I do that only because to grow, because the
Hmm.
other people that I'm surrounded with, which goes to your point of the community, right, is the other
Yeah.
people. I can grow through just having conversations, even though it's a quarterly meeting. I go once a quarter, 3, 4 times a year. I see them, but it's really the big source of my growth right now, as well as from our customers, learning from our customers and talking to them, their issues, how are they solving it. All of these are exciting ways to think about new ways that we can then offer, to maybe other types of customers who are maybe not thinking about that. So all that gives a sense of you can always keep growing, even when you've been around for,
Hmm.
you've been around for decades and you think, what else is
Yeah,
there? It gets harder actually
that's
to find
right.
opportunities to grow. But the generations are changing too, and we talked about that, and we talked about how hard it is in a lot of the frontline industries, especially yours in the QSR or quick service restaurant business. We always try and spell everything out so that our audience who may not be familiar with
Yeah.
that can get it. But anyway, in your business in particular, I know retention is a big thing. And you have a lot of competition, right, from adjacent industries as well. So as employee expectations are evolving, how do you see that? How do you see that future? Where how do you expect the employee expectations to evolve, especially Gen Z? And how do you overcome that inherent challenge of shift work to deliver the kind of experiences that maybe they expect to have in their workplace?
Right. I think I think the fundamentals remain the same. They don't change. The inherent needs, the that we spoke about, remain the same. However, to your point, generation this is a generational shift. People have different ways where they want to learn, they want to communicate, or they want to even work. So, for example, earlier we could have maybe 60 people, 70 people, 80 people who were enough to provide the shift coverage and get everything done. But now there is a newer breed which does not want to work perhaps 40 hours a week. So we now have more people who are hourly onto our shifts. That's just one way of how
Mm,
the business has evolved, right? If you think about certain things like communication, earlier, if you were to have your rosters put up, there would be a notice board and there'd be a long roster. You would search for your name, and you'll perhaps um, going back 20, 30 years, you'd write down your shifts if they are different shifts, or if they're consistent shifts, you are working Monday, Friday, and Saturday from 5 in the evening till midnight. Uh, that's how they would kind of pick up their shifts and understand how they would do it. Same thing for when they have to apply for leave, there'd be a written documentation to that. We just can't afford to do that right now because the new generation doesn't work like that. So now we have more electronic ways of communication. Some are organized and some are unorganized. There are every store has got a social media group, whether they use WhatsApp or iMessages or text messages, but they have a group where they communicate. And then some are more organized where we have a rostering schedule. There is the managers create the rosters, and that kind of flows through to the employees directly through the apps. So that's another way of changing and adopting technology. The other key one would be training. For example, you going way back again in those times, you would have a lot of training which would be reading actual paper books, referring to manuals which are maybe 1,000 pages and indexed, and you will go and do all of that learning. You just can't afford to do that. It's costly to get it done, and sent out to all our locations, then to maintain them. If something changes, a menu changes or a standard changes, you got to then send out those many papers, and somebody has to insert, destroy the old ones. Those are archaic ways we cannot operate in. So again, electronically, we now have a LMS system. We have now got an ATS system. We now have got an online full ecosystem where people can just log in using their single sign-on and start to learn. So that's the platform side. But then there is also what is on this platform. If we just simply took pictures, photographs, scanned these documents, or typed up and created training modules which are digital, and instead of reading a paper, now we are reading a screen, that's not going to fly either. So we have further evolved from there. And now, how are we bringing avatars in? How are we getting digital training, show and tell, guided practice, videos, artifacts, interactive learning? All of those things are being brought into our learning ecosystem to make it more relevant and sticky, for our new age employees. So those are just a few examples, Sonia, but it's that kind of change is happening across the system. And I'm sure if somebody is getting left behind, they just need to kind of look at some of those systems there and start to evolve.
yeah, change is the name of the game these days, right? Every day there's a new challenge, and there's a lot of changes in just how we live even our personal lives, right? In the day
Right.
to day, think of how we, before pandemic and now, how do we do most of our shopping? How do we? So a lot of things change, and in some ways, especially for the frontline, what we notice too is this widening gap between your personal life and how connected you are and how you communicate. You mentioned communication, right? And then at work, how do we connect and communicate? So I'm going to ask you one last question, kind of around the idea of how we connect and communicate. If you think of just one thing that could help the frontline workers just feel more connected in terms of communication, right? Because it all starts with that, especially with the younger generation, and especially with the shift work and frontline environment. What would that be? What would be one thing that you would recommend, or that you would like to do yourself to help them feel more connected, to help them,
Yeah.
communicate more fully?
Yeah. I think my one thing that I want to do is to establish effective communication lines. Going back to the point of the rate of change is so high that if we were to take all of these decisions sitting here in the support center that we have here in Dallas, Texas, it's going to be outdated very, very soon because our real business is outside in the stores, in different locations. We do not have a single cash register here that brings in the revenue. All of it is in the store. So we got to get closer to the stores. So I would encourage any business like ours or us included to be constantly looking at how we should connect with the front line. And one of those things that we have started here is we've started a CEO advisory council, which is essentially a direct line between the GM, general manager of the stores, and the CEO of the company. Each quarter, we would bring in 8 of our GMs from both brands, and they would have an audience with the leadership team. And this meeting is going to be chaired by the CEO, where they can bring up certain issues, suggestions, ideas, concerns, and things which are going well. It's going to be a well-rounded conversation. It's not about just sitting up and saying, "Hey, this is not working. This is not this is broken. Fix it." Yes, that too. But then also tell us, "Hey, these things are working. Uh, Please continue to do so. It's getting you the results. You may not see it in the numbers, but it's there." And then also ideas and suggestions, which is where the real benefit of this is. Things that we don't know, we don't think, but they're experiencing in their stores. And the topics are wide ranging. They could be actually about the product. They could be actually about the customer, what the customers are telling them, or about the employee that's working for them and saying, we don't feel that the employee is happy, or we feel that the employee is happy. So I'm super excited about that. That's something that our CEO Tarun Lal is very excited about as well, and he's a big sponsor of building those communication lines. So that'll be one thing. If you don't have a direct line to your front line, then please figure out a way to get that done.
Absolutely. That's a great last word from you. Thank you so much, Devesh. This has been extremely insightful and very interesting for me, and I know that our audience will enjoy it as well. This wraps another Upfront episode for our audience. If you found this useful, please find us on Spotify to listen to more episodes and across social media. Share it with others. If you need help connecting with your frontline or Desktop employees, see the show notes for information on how to connect with us at Trivy, or just email us at upfront@gotrivy.com. That's upfront@gotrivy.com. Bye for now. Till the next episode.